Hello, everyone, and welcome to this special bonus episode of Crushing Land. Over the last couple of weeks in particular, we've been getting a lot of questions regarding basically our background, what we've done, how we got started in land. Apparently, there's a lot of different information that's being put out there about us and people saying different things or whatever it may be. People have just heard different things, and so they're calling in and asking. And so a couple of weeks ago, when we did a live training in our Facebook group, it actually came up as a question, and one of the things uh, it's come up again since then. And so we addressed it at that point, and just thought that maybe a lot of you that missed that would like to know where my background in particular in land came from. And so what we're going to do now is we're just going to play that segment for you so that you can hear exactly where I came from, what my land investing background is, what I've done, who I've helped, all of those different things. So we hope that this helps you guys. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can call us, you can email us, you can schedule a call. All of that information is in the description. Feel free to like and comment as well. And make sure you subscribe, as we're still going through a lot of different information that's applicable to your land investing business right now. So thanks for tuning in. Enjoy, and I hope that you find this educational and informative.
So, can we hear about how you got started? And was it from a certain individual?
So, me, okay, so I mean, I guess Ginis, you already kind of talked about yours, right? I mean, you already said it at the beginning. So my background in this, and how I got started and everything like that. So I actually got started because of my father. So my father invested in land in like the 70s and 80s. He bought properties and was doing this, and it was actually playing the subdividing game back then. He did I don't know, 3 or 4 subdivisions, and he always kind of liked vacant land. And then he had a brokerage, and he, kind of like everything I talked about that I did in real estate, my father did, 20, 30 years earlier. And so in the early 2000s, I had moved to Florida, and my father moved after me. And basically we were in homes and mobile homes and that because we were going to be doing something with an existing business, and that's what they were doing. And everything like I talked about, all of the things with the regulations and everything that happened in 2006, 7, 8 kind of made everything crazy in houses. And so my father actually made the statement, well, why don't we, I want to go back to land. I like land. And so I was like, I didn't really know anything about it, but I was like, sure, why not? We can, like I said, we did it to supplement what was going on. So at this point in time, basically any program that was out there, kind of like these ones that we have or anybody has, back then they were, you literally got like a binder with papers and you read it, maybe CDs to listen to, right? No videos, nothing on the internet, nothing interactive, right? So what he did was he bought like 4 or 5 of them, different ones, on eBay at the time, because people would buy them and then resell them. And they, I didn't like it. So,
$50 and $60.
Yeah, $50. It was like, people were. So he just bought like all of the different ones available. And so with that, we kind of parsed through it. We looked at it. We talked to our attorneys. The biggest thing that was glaring that the attorneys kept telling us, we had 2 different ones that were working with us, is, the documents need refining. So that's what happened. We literally went back and like started from scratch with the documents. And in some of those, they did refine them. And some of them, they made minor adjustments. Some of them, they did huge overhauls. And other ones, they just like junked and said, no, don't use that. We're going to create you a different one. And so that was from, a few different things that were available at that time. Fast forward a few years, one of the, prominent land speakers that was out there started, they came to our area pretty much every year. They did like these different live trainings, and they were in our area. And so that being the case, it was right there, like in our backyard. So we just started going. That was one of the ones that he bought the program for on eBay. We just went kind of every year or every other year or whatever it was. I don't even remember how often they ran. And that was kind of the extent of how far we went with that program. And then one day, I don't know, and this goes back to Roman, we've talked about him. I went to a event, not a live event, but like an event where this person, this land educator, was speaking, and there was this Roman was there, as was others.
That was
And
when you were getting the award. That's when you were
no,
getting
no,
the
no,
award.
way before this. This was at Aria. So he was there, and he said, basically, when the speaker was done, he said, "Oh, by the way, if you want to see like a live example of somebody doing these in this area, he's sitting right there." And so I had like this huge group coming up to me afterwards, and they're asking me all these questions, and they're just like peppering me with all these things. And my wife and I were there, I don't know, hour and a half after, just answering questions for them. And so he reached out to me, and Roman did afterwards, and he said, "Hey, can you teach me this business?" And I was just doing it. I wasn't working for anybody, with anybody, nothing like that. He just said, "Can you teach me this business?" And I said, "Well, you just listen to so-and-so." And he's like, "Yeah," but he's like, he's just up on stage selling a product. He's like, "I want to hear from the guy actually doing it." And so I was like, "Okay, let's run with this. Let's see where it goes." And I liked it. And so at that point, I actually approached that individual that was the teaching, and I said, "Hey, I'd be interested in teaching for you." I never went through any of their coaching, anything like that, but I approached them and said, I've done X deals. At this point, it was, I don't know, a couple hundred maybe. I don't know what it was at that point in time. But I said, I feel like I've got a good grasp. Can we teach it? And that's when you talked about, they had me come to an event. They gave me an award. And then I started teaching for them for, I don't know, 3 years maybe. I don't even know the timing of it. Didn't really want to do that. Creative differences, let's call it, differences in how business should be done, just different thoughts. I'm not going to get into that, but left, said I'm going to start focusing just on my own deals again. Kind of left it at that. And then what happened was, people were just before you, people that knew me from that thing were reaching out, being like, "Man, we really wanted to work with you," because there was only 2 of us at the beginning, right? That were teaching it. And so basically, by the time I left, there was 10, and I had trained pretty much all of them. Most of them were my students, right? They had come through, up through us, and we had introduced some stuff. I had introduced some stuff that changed. Ginis introduced some stuff that changed. So I left, people heard it and said, "We really wanted to work with you." And so they're reaching out. I'm like, "No, I'm not doing that anymore. I'm not doing it anymore." And didn't. And then Ginis reached out, and he had left for his own reasons, and said, "I'm getting all these calls. We should really look at doing something." So it's kind of funny, like the whole coaching atmosphere, the whole getting into land started from my father, and like looking at different things and different ways of doing things. The whole teaching thing basically twice came out of demand. One time was the very first person, Roman, and he admits it, and I talk about that with him. And he kind of got me going in it, asking me to do that. And then a few years later, after everything was done, I'd spent some time, and knowing Ginis said, "Hey, there's a demand again. They want to work with you. They're calling me." And we ran with it since then.
Just to kind of touch on this a little bit, Jonathan, and add to what you're saying. I mean, I've known Jonathan since he came on board. When I was actually doing some back end stuff for this, for the speaker, and I mean, Jonathan used to help me a lot with my deals, right? I'd be able to reach out. He used to always tell me, "Hey, reach out to me if you got questions, man." And we were like kind of a team, but not a team, because we were working for someone else and doing our own stuff. And we still did our own investing. But I always went to Jonathan when I had an issue, a question that I didn't know something. And I mean, the guy was just so damn knowledgeable, man. Every time I reached out to him, I got what I needed. It worked every time. And I'm like, man, this guy's effing good, right? So, when all this started going down, I mean, when I left, I was getting calls left and right, and messages and this and that. "Oh man, you should do this," and "Hey, you should do this," and "You should do that." And Jonathan, I know Jonathan was always really good, and he was just doing his own stuff at the time. And I said, "Hey man, I mean, I know what no one else is doing out here, right? I've worked not only with this one speaker, but I've worked with probably 20 or 30 different speakers since 2010. Okay. So it's not like I only worked for one person. I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the United States as far as education companies. So, I mean, it was just knowing what they weren't doing on the back end. And when you work for somebody else, you got to do things the way they want it done, right? Unfortunately, that's just how it works, right? Just like if somebody comes to work for me and Jonathan, we want things done a certain way. that's the way it needs to be done, right? Because we're the ones calling the shots. Just like when you work for somebody else, they're the owner, they're calling the shots. So, I mean, you can bring ideas and things of that nature, but at the end of the day, it's their business. And no knock on anybody. Everybody does things however they want to do them. But I know what a lot of these speakers and educators are not providing their students, right? And the majority of it was on the sell side. I can teach you how to get deals all day long, but when it comes to selling, it's a different animal. And Jonathan is probably the best guy in land investing when it comes to selling deals, right? So it's not a matter of getting them, because it's like throwing spaghetti at a wall. If you throw enough mail out there, you're going to get deals on the contract, right? Believe it or not, it's going to happen. The hard part comes when it comes to sell. Yeah, we've had a few years where it became really easy. And now we're going to go back to those years where it's not so easy, right? Where these lots are sitting around for 3, 5, 7, 8, 9 months. So you got to have the strategies in today's market for it to work, right? And that's where a lot of people say. So again, just going back to like when I knew the opportunity was there, because we were getting told, and Jonathan already had a huge following because of his ability to do deals, because of all the success he's had coaching students. And like I said, till this day, there's probably 5 or 6 of this person's coaches, or Jonathan coached them. And they may not agree with it, or they may not say it, but it's the truth. And you know, but what it came down to was, I know Jonathan's a good person. I've come to know him over the years, just having phone conversations, meeting him at live events, hanging out with him and his wife sometimes, with me and my wife, because my wife always came, his wife always came to the event. So, I mean, it was always, you know, just, we always had that good camaraderie. We always had great conversations. We always talked business. And then, you know, when the opportunity arose, and it was my other mentor that has really helped me out a lot, who was like, hey, you know, do it. And I'm like, you know what, we should probably make something happen. And we had no intention of even coming out with a system, with a course like the Land Riches Blueprint, right? We had like a whole year and a half that went by, and all we wanted to do was help small groups of people, right? And just leave it at that. And then we started getting asked that, hey, you guys should come out with a system that's a lower barrier of entry. So we said, hey, let's see how it works. And yeah, I mean, I
think our entire this business came out of demand, right? I mean, like literally, because people were like, we want to learn from you. Okay. And what do? We did like we did like a live 8-week, couple hours a day training, and people loved that. Yeah. And then we switched it up, and then they're like, well, don't you have something more basic? And then it's, because you know what happens is, the followers that followed you for those reasons and wanted to work with you, well, those dry up, right? The ones that from that group, they don't dry up, you get new ones, but they dry up as far as those people that were like that. So they said, okay, so we did those, and then newer people were coming on because they heard about it, but then they were like, well, we're not quite there. Do you have? And so then it was like a system. And then other people were like, well, what about more interactive? And what about like additional extra? And so then that's where goal, I mean, and then it was like, well, I can't afford, I want to work with you, but I can't justify spending $50,000, $60,000 like these other people charge. So then it was like, what can we do there? And that's where, you know, the whole a la carte thing, everything came out of demand from listening to
our students. Yeah, to our group, to our members, to people that follow us and believe in us and ask us questions, and you know, that we provide advice to, and they always tell us what they see out there and how we can be different. And I mean, again, our whole goal is to try to be us, right? We are who we are. We're just 2 regular guys. We're not suit and tie guys. We don't act like we are. We don't act like we're this big expert and this guru. I mean, we're just 2 regular people at the end of the day that just had some success, that loves to help people because we love to do land. And we just love to, you know, just help those that we can. So just moving on, Jonathan.
Well, one thing I'll say real quick, just the point on that, because I don't want to, the sales side, I mean, I do that. I thank you for that. And that's something I am known for. And you know, Ginis knows this. And again, this would probably be denied. And I've got proof. I mean, I'm not going to show it, but I have it if I ever needed it. But that person actually hired me to sell their properties because they said, well, you could sell them better than we can. So I was selling their properties while working for. So, you know, it's out there. I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, we could, I'm not gonna, because I'm not that type of person. But I mean, I have the documents that show that, you know, I have the agreements, I have the contracts that from when we saw, you know, I have the pictures with all the people that I helped over the years, you know, with them and being thanked for training them and all of that stuff. So, I mean, it's out there, you know, once it's on the internet, it's out there for good. Right. So, it's there. But that, like I said, the
We're
entire
we're
thing.
so focused. We're so focused on what we do, and not other people and what they got to say about us, because we know who we are as individuals. We know who we are as investors, and our students that have been through a lot of these programs know who we are as well. And yesterday there were several students that posted nice things about us. You can reach out to them directly and ask them who we are, how they feel about us, and things of that nature, so you can hear it firsthand from someone other than myself and Jonathan, right? Because we can sit here until our face turns blue and say all the good things about us, right? But until you hear it from someone else, your own peers, of people that started just like you, someone like a Ryan Wilkins, who when he started with us was just so green to land, that knew anything, was one of the slowest people to get started. Didn't get started till like 4 or 5 months after he bought into our program. And guess what? We didn't leave him in the dust. We didn't say, hey, your time's up, buddy, because we know things come up in people's lives, right? Where today you could be doing great, next week something changes, and now you have to be out for a month or two, right? Where that's the difference why we don't have these long-term commitments with a lot of people, where you're putting all this money up front, because then if something like that happens, you know damn well they're not going to give you your money back. So why us even take it up front when we can take it over time, as long as you're satisfied and happy, and we're doing what we got to do and you're doing what you got to do, right? So, I mean, we're just a little bit different than everybody else. And it's not a bad thing. It's not a good thing. It's just we are who we are at the end of the day. But we do care 100% about our student base and you guys succeeding. Because if you guys succeed, you guys are going to tell everybody else and they're going to want to come and work with us as well. And that's how we are. That's how we are where we are today.